truth and the good news of salvation to his people Israel and to all the peoples through his son Yeshua the Messiah, our Lord.
Amen.
Amen.
Ezekiel chapter 412. Yeah, it's obvious.
Obvious.
Okay. Dusting off cobwebs, de-judging. Can anybody remember what chapter 9 was about? Chapter 8.
Put your pictures off, please.
Everything on silent.
Well, there were abominations in the temple. They were.
Put your cell phones off, please.
Okay.
They. Well, I don't know. It was. I went and read it again, and it said the inner court, the north of the inner court. And I
Yes.
remember you
The
said.
inner court of the city, and then you get there by the altars, and then you get slowly different descriptors, right? So worst case scenario, you're talking about Jerusalem and then going to temple. Otherwise, the court, then closer to temple. Right. Either way.
I don't know. To me, it read like it was the temple inner court, the north temple inner court.
Remember, to be part of the inner court, you would have to have seen the altar already. But only mentions the altar later, but that's another story. Anyway, okay. Cracking on. Remember, you could be talking about the inner court of the Gentiles. If that sort of scenario. Remember, it wasn't the same court of the Gentiles as the roots. Okay?
Okay, so if I had to
So
draw
there
it,
were
then
there were
like that.
different courts for different things in any temple that they had.
Okay.
Right. So hopefully that clears it up.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay.
And then we spoke about Tammuz because they were worshipping him and did idol worship and.
Right. And what was the thing? Okay, chapter 8, he allows him to dig through the walls and he's allowed to see what's going on behind the scenes. People are finding pagan things everywhere. Inside, in secret, in his I'm just gonna have to get through. On the altar, in all around the altars, inside people's homes, etc., etc. And then chapter 9, we see that funny little piece about the man in linen. Linen normally tells you what?
Died.
Okay, that normally, what does linen represent? What type of plant is linen? Can you eat it? You're not allowed to answer. It's terrorizing everybody else. Linen.
Linen was a plant. Wow.
Is it cotton? No, linen. Is it cotton blend? No, it's not blend. There's no blend. I don't know.
Okay, so we just
Something to
read
do with
linen.
beryl.
We just read linen. Who wears linen?
Priest.
Right, okay. And that is what? A representation of what?
Purity.
Why?
Because you should be holy because God is holy.
Wow, purity and holiness are two completely separate issues, and yet they're linked at the same time, but it's got
Linked.
nothing to do with linen.
Isn't it righteousness?
Nope.
Isn't the material linen also like scratchy? No, I'm thinking of Jeremiah when
think
he
of
went
colour.
to the.
It's white. It's very
Because
white.
that's why.
And you can't
Right.
really color it. It's
Wow.
difficult.
There we go, because.
Because of the fiber, it doesn't absorb color very well.
Right, and which fabric does absorb the colour?
Wool.
Thank you.
Wool, right. So it is a flax plant. It is very
Flax
hard.
plant.
You can't get it in. And again, if you were going to look at that, just pull up them proofs, eh? When you look at the different ways of things, of how they would get the fabric to penetrate, or the color to penetrate the fabric, it was very difficult. We know historically, Josephus said the Romans were the first to get it right. Okay? So the reason is, if you were going to use a linen, it would be a bad idea to use a linen garment to try and dye in, because you'd keep it 3 or 4 times, and the color, whatever you try to use, would just come out. So linen was generally just pure white. Okay? We see the priests wearing it, the Kohanim wearing it, as a symbol of purity. Right? Like you guys said. Okay. Wunderbar. We see him, he has a scribal belt, and he runs around doing all types of things. What was he doing?
With his spouse.
What? He was mocking him, right? And he was, we equated that to what? Right. Remember when you talk about Revelations, it talks about the 144,000 hold back the judgments until we seal them. And that seal was a picture of what? We looked at something that would seal and protect them. So we have a picture of Pesach as a covering, right? But we also have the idea, and we took it back to what it actually alluded to was the Holy Spirit, the Ruach HaKodesh. That was the seal of protection over them, His very presence and His mark on them. Okay, so we kind of get this imagery of Revelation sort of motif talking about what was happening again, and we see that sort of played out again with 140,000. All right. All more or less happy. Jolly good. I'm going to read from verse 8 of chapter 9, just to give us a little bit more context, because 9 and 10 go together. While the killing was going on, I was left alone. I fell on my face, crying, and I said, "Oh Adonai Elohim, in pouring out your fury on Jerusalem, are you going to destroy everyone left in Israel?" Then he said to me, "The wickedness of the house of Israel in Yehudah is enormous. The land is full of blood, and the city is full of justice denied, because they say Adonai has left the land. Adonai doesn't see. But as far as I'm concerned, my eye will not spare, and I will not pity, but I will bring the consequences of their ways on their own heads." But at this point, the man clothed in linen with the writing equipment at his waist returned and reported, "I've done everything you ordered me to do." Then I looked, and suddenly on the dome on the heads of the cherubim, there appeared above them something like sapphire that seemed to take the form of a throne. Okay? Where did we see the cherubim again before? Ezekiel.
In the Ark of the on the Ark of the Covenant.
In Ezekiel.
In Ezekiel.
In Ezekiel 1.
Chapter 1, right? We see this massive call of the prophet. We see him taking him up in heaven. We see him dealing with the cherubim. No stress. We see the cherubim, we see this, and now all of a sudden, so immediately at the back of your mind, you've already got something we've seen, something that's there, something that we're going to see again. Sapphire. What color is sapphire? Blue, okay? It's possible. Remember, every time they talk about the gemstones here, it's not an exact science, okay? So they'll say sapphire, but the names have changed over time. If it is, we're looking at a blue backdrop behind God or His throne. What does that remind you of?
Christ.
Huh?
Royalty.
The sky, right. And remember, when we start talking about the blue, we start talking about heavenly royal priesthood. Okay? We have Creator God. Where is the first time we see the word Elohim pop up?
Genesis 1.
Genesis 1. If you don't know that by now, I'll beat you. Verse 1. You saw it a lot. Okay? So again, he takes us back to Creator God, and he's talking about this backdrop. And remember, that same blue covering is over the cherubim, the ark when it gets moved, the menorah when it gets moved. All the things in the holy place, in the Holy of Holies, get covered with blue. Right. Okay. That's when they get identified. So it's an interesting picture that God already gave us the instruction there. We're seeing it played out in a vision of heaven itself. Okay? He spoke to the man clothed in linen, and he said, "Go in between the wheels under the cherubim, fill both your hands with the fiery coals from between the cherubim, and throw them on the city." As I watched, he went. Now the cherubim were standing to the right of the house when the man entered, and the cloud filled the inner courtyard. The glory of Adonai rose from above the cherubim, from above the cherub, to the threshold of the house, leaving the house filled with the cloud and the courtyard full of the brilliance of Adonai's glory. What are we talking about here? Brilliance, cloud. Give me pictures.
Walking in the desert, the fire column, the cloud that protected them.
Right. You're talking about the Shekhinah. You're talking about the Shekhinah at Sinai. You're talking about the Shekhinah that came down on the Mishkan. You're talking about that same Shekhinah that came down on the temple. Right? So it becomes a picture of God's, this bright, brilliant, bright light, as well as we generally see the sounds of rushing winds and the sound of a great shofar every time he appears. Okay? So, leaving the house filled with the cloud in the courtyard, full of brilliance of Adonai's glory, the sound of the wings of the Kruvim could be heard even in the outer courtyard, sounding like the voice of God, Shaddai, when he speaks. Any other translation? El Shaddai. What does El Shaddai mean? Okay, El is normally the word we use for God. Okay, now we will say Almighty, but Eshad is a little bit more personal. Now it's got two plays. Okay, I generally lean towards the feminine here because of what it alludes to. Okay, Eshad in Hebrew.
Is this the mini breast?
Breast. Okay, some people say it's chest. All right. The point is, as El Shaddai, as he showed his function to Avraham, Yitzhak, and Yaakov, how is it that a breast, or sometimes translated, or could be translated as many-breasted one, okay, could come in and help me understand the God of Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob?
He nurtures
One
him.
of the gods that were
Not other gods yet. Talking about God.
It shows him as the Elohim of provision. He nurtures and he provides and takes care of your every need.
Right. Because all a newborn baby needs is
Milk.
His mommy's milk. Right. Everything, all the immunities, all the right proteins, and all the good things that any baby needs, there is simply put in a prepackaged formula, and that's part of it. Okay? Another illustration would be that father carries his children close to the chest so that he would be the one to carry them. But in the wilderness, I believe it is it's a nicer or a more personal idea, knowing that these people could not survive by themselves, and yet he blessed them. Abraham, Isaac, Jacob, water, food, and they just kept on expanding until the point of the same image of Israel coming out, same picture, same God, just on a bigger scale. He provided for them. Okay. Ness started to bring up a counterfeit. Can you remember the name of that counterfeit?
it was one of the goddesses of the time. I don't remember her name, but she has another. Her whole of the upper body was covered in breast.
We've got two names. No,
The fertility god.
that's Roman and Greek. Features in Acts.
The Easter Bunny.
Fertility,
Fertility, only fertility God I know about.
Is the bunny with
Ishtar?
Isha is woman.
No,
But Ishtar is a god.
yeah, I think it's
Ishtar.
derived from
Ishtar
Ashtar.
was
Ah, yeah,
Ishtar
no.
is the
Not
same
not
one.
the same.
Not the one you-
Diana
Oh yes, Diana.
or
Diana
Artemis.
Artemis.
Okay, same goddess.
Yeah.
Okay, it is the goddess of love. All right. We see that played out. I think they were saying in I want to say Ephesus. Was it Ephesus? I'll look for you. But anyway, yes, it was. What was the first church in Revelations? Was Ephesus?
Yeah.
Yes, it was Ephesus. It was the goddess of love. It was a place where they had done, and they lifted it up all the way up to the point, and then his indictment against them is a little tongue-in-cheek, as you know, as we go through Revelations. Each church makes it personal. God gives them a perfect little message. He says, you have forgotten your first. That's not love. It's funny that the word Diana also talks about being divine. A divine love. It's agape. And who was shown agape? Peter, right? Remember? Do you love me? Do you love me? Do you love me? You guys know what I'm talking about?
Yeah, I agape.
Right? He says, I friendship love you. I phileo you. Right? And then he goes, do you agape me, Peter? And he goes, no, I phileo you. I love you like a brother. Do you agape me? No, I phileo you. Then he comes down again. He goes, do you phileo me? He goes, but of course I phileo. I've told you 3 times that I loved you. Peter never understood agape. he was not capable. Agape love is loving like with the heart of the Father. I love you regardless. I love you broken and all. I love you in the fullness of everything. He saw compassion, he saw mercy where people saw annoyance. How did Peter understand agape in his fullness? Or when did Peter come to the place where he understood agape? Close. When after crucifixion. Acts 2, right? When the Acts gets poured out, all of a sudden he gets filled with a boldness and he starts to speak, he starts to shout out to a group of people that were responsible for getting the Mashiach. In many ways and shapes and forms, not the only, but they didn't help the situation. They got him crucified, right? Why else would he have gone out and why else would he have cried out to get them saved? Okay, so it's an interesting illusion. All right. Okay, verse 6. Back in Ezekiel. When he ordered the man clothed in linen to take fire from between the wheels, from between the Kruvim, he went in and stood next to the wheel, and the Kerev, or the cherub, put out his hand from between the Kruvim into the fire between the Kruvim, took some of it and put his hands on the one clothed in linen, and he took it and he went out. Now there appeared among the Kruvim the form of a man's hand under the wings. I took and saw 4 wheels next to the Kruvim, one wheel next to one Kruvim and another wheel next to the other. I'm just going to say cherub, it's just easy. The wheels had the color of beryl. Their shape was the same as all 4, like a wheel inside the wheel. When they moved, they could go in any of the 4 directions without turning as they moved. Rather, wherever the head looked, they followed without turning as they moved. Their whole bodies included their backs, hand, wings, and also the wheels were full of eyes all around. Even the wheels of the 4 Kruvim, as for the wheels, I heard them called the wheel apparatus. Every one of the Kruvim had 4 faces. The first face was the face of a cherub. The second face was the face of a man. The third face was the face of a lion. And the fourth face was the face of an eagle. What's different?
The bull's missing.
Yes, the ox, right? Okay, but Jared says he's just got a face of an ox or of a cherub. Okay, so maybe it's just a slight depiction, but we see one slight difference in what is being shown. Then the Kruvim rose. These were the living creatures I have seen by the Kavara River. When the Kruvim moved, the wheels went with them, and when the Kruvim lifted their wings to rise off the ground, these wheels did not stop going with them. When the Kruvim stood still, the wheels stood still, and when the former rose, the latter rose, and with them, because the spirit of the living creatures was in them. Now the glory of Adonai left the threshold of the house and halted above the Kruvim. Okay, so now the Shekhinah is moved. Okay, it's moved a little bit away from the house, and now it's sitting there by the Kruvim. The Kruvim lifted their wings and rose off the earth. I was watching as they went off the wheels next to them. They paused at the entrance to the east gate of Adonai's house with the glory of God of Israel over them from above. So they start to move with the Shekhinah, and now they've moved to the east gate. What's going east? We believe it is going towards the Mount of Olives. Okay? It's an interesting thing.
Are they the protectors of the throne of Elohim, or what is
Well, I
going
think
on?
when the throne moves, they move. So when God decided that he was now lifting up his presence from his house, then they go with him. Okay? When we see it, we always see the cherubim flanking him on his mercy seat. So when the Shekhinah moves, they're going to move.
Is this a house in heaven or a house on earth?
Well, it's a vision.
It's a
so
vision of he's seeing
he's
what
seeing-
looks like God's presence on Temple Mount.
Okay.
In Temple. Right. And now they're starting, the Shekhinah itself is slowly but surely moving away from his house.
which means trouble for them.
And is
Right.
it, sorry, and the wheels? I don't understand. Is it like a chariot? Is it like...
No one really knows what those wheels are. What he says, they round, they move, and when they move, and they can go in any direction all they want, and they're looking at everything all the way around, and there's, almost like a chariot sort of depiction, almost like an ark sort of depiction. But again, we literally would just be trying to figure this out.
You know what it makes me think of? iRobot. You know that Audi that Will Smith drives?
Yeah.
Like balls for wheels, and he can go,
Yeah,
drive like this.
Like Ezekiel finally makes sense.
That would make a lot of sense.
We don't know how they work. All we know is that it's powered by what seems like ruach. Okay? So, this is where we are. So, he's seeing the very Shekhinah of God after the seals were done, people are dying everywhere, and now the Shekhinah is leaving the house. This is where the living creatures I had seen beneath the God of Israel by the Kafar River. I knew they were cherubim. Each of the four had 4 faces, and each had 4 wings, and they looked like a man's hands was under his wings. As for how their faces looked, they were faces like I've seen by the Kafar River, identical in appearance. Each one moved straight ahead. Okay. So, tell me what would be the point of taking the coals and putting them over the city?
Sodom and Gomorrah, that's what I was thinking.
Remember?
Yeah.
We have to look at, remember what I said, when you look at Ezekiel, understand it from a priest's point of view.
Priest.
Oh. So I would say it's the cleansing. Like it also reminds me to, who was it that said my mouth is, I'm an unclean man with unclean lips. And they took the coal from the fire and they cleansed his lips. I see it as that cleansing.
Right. Okay. But then why does the Shekinah have to move?
Would that be the picture of Acts 2, that Holy Spirit moving from?
This is moving away, it's not coming down.
When they went into the altar, they took the coals in. But every time I think of that, I have a picture of a Catholic priest. I just can't picture.
The fire is holy fire, isn't it?
Yeah.
From the altars. It's sacred
They
fire.
got it from somewhere, hey?
That's me.
It all originated from the original.
Yeah.
away from the place where his presence no longer dwells.
Right. So his presence is no longer, but then why would I need the altar, the coals from the altar, and what has that got to do with the city?
When they moved, they took the coals with them
Okay.
in the wilderness. Did they not? They had to
Well,
keep the
that's the
coals
thing, they
with
had to keep it going, but that was because they had the altar with them.
them.
But judgment is coming on the city now.
So it's kind of both. You're looking at judgment, you're looking at the fire and brimstone, but from a point out, there also is the purification of the offering system that is coming into play. Because the place is defiled, the blood and everything is crying out to him, the Shekinah cannot dwell there. They are saying he's not here, it doesn't matter what happens here, and he's saying, well, if you don't want me, I'm leaving. Now understand, let's put this into its framework. Who built first temple? Solomon, right? Okay. Where did he get the design from?
No, from the
From the Mishkan. Okay. David added to, but David's framework was obviously based on Mishkan. Okay, so he might have added some decorative touches, but that's about it. The basic outline is Mishkan. Alright? There's no two ways about it. We have an outer court, we have an altar, we have a laver. It's the same procession that goes through. Okay? Solomon goes and he builds this lavish house. Let me throw some spanners. How many menorot were in the house? 10. 10. Why 10?
7. Oh, 10. It wasn't for 10 nations because 10 times 7 is 70 elders.
70 nations. Okay. For a lamp for each and every one of them. Okay. And he goes lavish. You don't just need one pure gold menorah. You need, let's do 10. Let's do 10 lechem pamim, the bread of his presence. Let's go a little crazy here, and we start to make it elaborate. You go back to the time of Moses. Let's say anybody can give me a beeline date for David, more or less. David's an easy one to remember. The second one, I'm going to need help with. No. 1000 BC. 1000 BC plus minus, give or take. All right? Let's say now for Moses and the Mishkan. More or less.
6,000. I don't know.
Maybe about 600 years before.
Yeah, how many? Well, let's give it a gander. Let's take it at its
BC?
I think it might be a little. Abraham, we rate, well, if we could say, some again. The Exodus was around 1,350, so we could probably say we've probably had the Mishkan for about at least 300 years. Min of meer, okay? About 300 years. 300 God dwelling with you, 300 years of Shekhinah, 300 years of all of this, 300 years of going from Mishkan, Shekhinah, temple, Shekhinah, dwelling with us, being with us, going through us, getting us through the the Syrian struggle, coming through with the first 2 strikes of Babylon. We're still here, we're still surviving, we still have Mishkan. God is still with us. We still have our temple. Everything is still there. People are saying, God will never destroy his house. Don't be ridiculous. False prophets everywhere.
Yeah, that's
And he sees a vision in Babylon of God's Shekinah leaving the house. Now, it is a building. But what it represents is very, 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 very important. What is the point of Mishkan? Emmanuel. Right? And remember, we have different names for it. It's a sanctuary, it's a place of meeting, it's a place of appointed times. You have different functions for it, but the simple fact of the matter, it's at the heart of everything. And if that thing is there, that means God is still there. So when Yeshua came to dwell, Sukkah, with us, okay, and we see him actually following the same pattern of him leaving as we see here in Ezekiel. Temple, Mount of Olives, ascends. We see later a restoration happens, talks about in Ezekiel 43, verse 1, talks about him coming back again, the Shekinah, in the same way. Yeshua.
It's actually the 2 witnesses when he ascended as well, just like the cherubim that said, Men of Galilee, why are you
Still staring up in the clouds? He's going to come in the same way. And if you want to mark it down, Zechariah 14 talks about his return, where he will come in again, and you will see it time again. He will leave from the west, and he will come in again. From the west, from the east. Leave from the east, and he's coming back from the east. And he's going to be coming back in from the Mount of Olives into the Mishkan again, to reestablish Emmanuel, God dwelling with us. Okay, so we're seeing these pictures already paralleling Revelations, Yeshua's point and purpose, but we're also seeing the judgment that has to take place. Right, because purification has to take place. Right. Okay. 11. Yeah, just scanning over my scribbles, trying to make sure I didn't leave anything out. Me neither. Then a spirit lifted me up and brought me to the east gate of Adonai's house, and the gate that faces eastward. At the entrance of the gate I saw 25 men, or 24 in one.
The 24 elders and some of them.
Is that an interesting little thing? Is this now the 25 men? We've heard them before, have we not?
Not of 25, but just of 24.
Just 24, and then we still asked if it was the
24 in Revelation.
the kids still asked if it was the 12 tribes and their wives. Remember?
No?
That was
24 and 1.
I like that. That's funny.
So 24 and 1, if we have Yeshua sitting with 25 elders, it'll give us 25. Right. Is this a possibility that, as with Joshua, we have a counterfeit? Yes, and maybe, and might not be.
Depends what we're going to read.
Not good things. At the entrance of the gate, I saw 25 men. Among them was Hazaniah, the son of Azur, Pladyahu, the son of Beniyahu, leaders of the people. He said to me, human being, these are the men who make evil plans and give wicked advice in the city.
Definitely counterfeit.
Definitely counterfeit. If we're going to look at anything that has to do with 24, these guys are doing exactly the opposite of what the leaders should be doing. Okay? And they say the time hasn't come to build houses. This city is the cooking pot. Yeah. The city is the cooking pot and we're the meat. Therefore prophesy against them, human being prophesy. Alright. The city is a cooking pot and we are the meat. Delightful imagery. God's going to slow roast you.
Hope there's no hook in there.
Sorry, can you just read? Because mine says, "Is it not a good time to build houses?" What is that?
This,
mean?
this time hasn't come to build houses.
So that's like a negative.
Yeah. You guys have any other
Okay,
translation?
that's different.
The time is not near.
The time is not
Time
near.
is not near.
Okay. So this is not a time to build houses. This is, the city is a cooking pot and we are the meat. Therefore prophesy against him, human being prophesy. All right.
Well, the heat's
That's what
coming.
If it's judgment, let us build houses.
But mine has a different, like,
Let us build houses.
it says it
Some
is
of you
not
know
near,
this.
comma, let us build houses.
The time is not near, let us come houses.
Comma, but let us build
The
houses.
time
That is
hasn't
not-
come.
not
So in
near,
other words, the
and
time
then
for
build houses.
destruction is not near. We can build our houses.
Yeah, that's what mine's saying with the comma,
Yeah.
but I
Well,
don't know if the comma is relevant.
I think maybe, yeah, because they say the time hasn't come to build houses. Maybe it's just a point of comma reference where the translators have got a difference of opinion.
Yeah.
Because there's no comma in Hebrew. So it could make a point either way.
Also, it could be that they say it will soon be time to build houses.
So we'll have 1, 2, or 17 of all the same. Isn't it lovely? Don't build houses, not.
Well, it makes a difference to the interpretation, I
Yes.
think.
Look, I think ultimately the next verse is key. The city is a cooking pot and we're the meat.
No, I'm not going to build a house if I'm going to be cooked there. You can stay, but I'm
Well,
going.
don't you like butterflies?
I like rain.
I might just be guessing, but is that an allusion to the destruction of the temple?
Go for me to 1 Samuel 2, verse 12.
How?
How what?
Go for me.
Go for me to that
Go
place.
for me to places.
No,
1 Samuel
I'm
2 verse.
1 Samuel
shocked
2,
because I know what you're
verse
about to read.
12. We're reading it this morning, Johnny.
In actual fact, I read it last Sunday.
Okay. 1 Samuel 2, verse 12. Eli's sons were scoundrels and had no regard for Adonai. Sound familiar? Alright, sorry, you want to take 2 seconds just to find that place. 1 Samuel 2, verse 12. Okay. Eli's sons were scoundrels who had no regard for Adonai. The rule these Kohanim followed in dealing with the people was that if anyone offered a sacrifice, the Kohen servant would come while the meat was stewing with a 3-pronged fork in his hand, and he would stick it in the pan, kettle, or cauldron or pot, and the Kohen would take for himself whatever the fork brought up. Okay, so that portion for the Levites. This is how they dealt with the people of Israel who came there to Shiloh. The Kohen's servant would actually come before the fat had been burnt to smoke and say to the man who was sacrificing, give the Kohen meat he can roast because he doesn't want your meat stewed but raw. Problem. But if the man answered, first let the fat burn to smoke, then take as much as you want, he would say, no, give it to me now or I'll take it by force. So, as a priest,
Rapture, actually. The winnowing fork. Think about it.
pull it out before the fire is
Three-pronged
cooked.
fork, and then he takes what he wants,
The winnowing,
or what he gets.
separating the wheat from the chaff.
Yeah.
Okay? So, you have this idea of what now? What is he trying to tell you?
Well, can I read you what this one says further? This translation, which is the NLT. Is it not a good time to build houses? This city is like an iron pot. We are safe inside it like meat in a pot.
Well, that's
So
trying to
they-
give you an interpretation
Again,
because
false security.
the cauldron protects you from the flames, but you're still being meat cooked alive. But remember, we're dealing with Ezekiel, who's a priest. Okay. So again, there might be protection. Well, they say, don't worry about it. We're going to be fine.
Because they lie.
But that's all false prophets. But at the same time, he's saying this is a city of a cooking pot. If God is burning it up, remember he's already giving you the image with the coals being thrown down of purification, okay, of dealing with what he needs to purify the offering. the city is a cooking pot and we're the meat. Okay? He's again going to bring up this purification in that which is dedicated to God should be, the fat should be completely burnt up. And there is a portion there that the Levites might eat of. But if the Levites are acting like scoundrels, or the prophets are not doing what's going on, they're stealing God's portion. Okay, so they are taking what does not belong to them. Kind of gives you a little bit of an understanding of what Ezekiel is dealing with here. Therefore prophesy against him, human being prophesy. The Spirit of Adonai fell on me and said to me, say, here's what Adonai says. What you are saying is correct, house of Israel, because I know how your minds work. You have killed many in the city. You have filled its streets with the dead. Therefore Adonai Elohim says this. Those you have killed and strewn all over it, they are the meat, and the city is indeed a cooking pot. But you will be removed from it. The very portion that was supposed to be for God's glory is going to be plucked out. You are afraid of the sword, but I will bring the sword upon you, says Adonai Elohim. I will bring you out, hand you over to foreigners, and execute judgments among you. You will die by the sword. I will judge you at the border of Israel, and you will know that I am Adonai. What is you will know that I am Adonai alluding to?
I don't know. Every time he took him out of Egypt, he said, I don't know.
What would be the point of taking him out of Egypt?
To teach them who he is. So again, he's
That's
teaching
nice.
them.
Why did he take them out of Egypt?
To marry them.
To release them from their
Why
bondage.
did he want to marry them? Why did he want to take them out from
Egypt out of
bondage?
them. It's also
It
true.
goes before, right? Abraham
Oh yeah.
Yay, someone
comes
was
all the way
paying
back.
attention.
Remember the first
Genesis
covenant.
18, Genesis 19.
Abraham, you will know that I am Adonai. Your seed will know that I am Adonai. Yitzhak, they will know that I am Adonai. Yaakov, it is the baseline for every major covenant in the Bible.
Okay.
Okay, when you see that, remember you have stipulations on both ends for the covenant. You will have blessings if you walk with him, and you will be smacked if you don't. Which part of what do you think is happening in this statement?
Being smacked.
Yeah. There's a point where he's getting up and leaving, the point of Emmanuel, the point of David's having someone sitting on the throne of David. Remember, the sign of Davidic covenant is what? Twofold.
The house and the house.
Right, the house. His dynasty and the temple will be secure. The Shekinah is leaving the temple. Who's sitting on the throne in Jerusalem at this point?
It talks about a prince, but what? Oh, you mean, sorry,
I'm thinking
not
of
in the
in
chapter.
Judges now.
Sorry.
I'm lost. I was in Judges for a
You
minute
are
now.
there. Someone is sitting on the throne. He was put in place by Babylon. He loses an eyeballs. Zedekiah, right. Okay? Is he now part of the great choice of Davidic lineage according to Torah observant anything? Not so much. He was instilled by Babylon. Put into place, put into power. The house is losing its mark. Okay? The city will not be your cooking pot, but you will be the meat in it. I will judge you at Israel's frontier, and you will know that I am Adonai, for you have not lived by my laws or obeyed my rulings, but have acted according to the rules of the nations surrounding you.
The frontier. I had a translation. It says border.
Frontier border, frontier town.
Found that interesting.
They are going to be scattered out to their borderlines. They're going to be running for their lives, trying to get away from them, and that's exactly kind of what happens to Zedekiah. Right. As I was prophesying, Pladiahu, the son of Benaiah, died. I fell down on my face and cried out, "Oh Adonai Elohim, are you going to destroy completely those of Israel who are left?" So he prophesies, and an oak drops dead.
No, but that oak's name, Elohim preserves. So that's the end of that.
It's not going to be there anymore.
No more preservation.
Now, give me a New Testament reference for something similar.
Where the preservation is gone.
Nope. Where?
Similar.
Add a word.
The guy,
Something drops dead.
I'm thinking.
No, the verse in Ezekiel for the story.
Huh?
I know the story, I don't know the verse.
Go to Acts 5.
Who's thinking of the girl in
The one, the couple that went up front about their money.
Yeah. Chapter good, it's sneaky,
Yeah,
huh?
yeah, they know.
All right. So we have pictures before of prophets saying, "At this thing," and then judgment came. Right? A simple one. Miriam goes up and challenges Moses. She all of a sudden gets struck with ta'arat, leprosy, a type of leprosy. Moses does what? Okay, so he doesn't go, if you come back in your box, no? Huh? No. He prays for her, and immediately she says she's as white. Right? And remember that whiteness is a sign that the disease is no longer red and inflamed, so it was healed at that very point. So it came and it was interceded and it was healing thereafter. But she still needed to be going outside the camp for 7 days. Okay? And then God gives the illusion and says, if she had told her father, he would have spat in her face, she still would have been unclean, she would have been put outside for 7 days. Don't think that you can walk along my prophets and you can tell them what, and then you get into this place. Okay? Time and time again, we see prophets being brought up against people and they prophesied people's death. Jeremiah came up against one, right? Says within a year, you will no longer be a problem, and he wasn't there anymore. Okay? 5 verse 1, Acts 5 verse 1. But there was a man named Hananiah. Funny enough, that guy in Jeremiah is also named Hananiah, who with his wife Shaphrah sold some property and with his wife's knowledge withheld some of the proceeds for himself, although he did not bring the rest to the emissaries. Then Kepha said, why is it the adversary has filled your heart that you would lie to the Ruach HaKodesh and keep back some of the money you received for the land? Before you sold it, the property was yours, and after you sold it, the money was yours to use as you pleased. So what made you decide to do such a thing, that you lied not to human beings, but to God? On hearing these words, Hananiah fell down dead. And everyone who heard about this is terrified. The young man got up, wrapped the body in a shroud, and carried him out and buried him. Some 3 hours later, his wife came in, unaware of what had happened. Kepha challenged her, tell me, is it true that you sold the land for such and such a price? Yes, she answered. That is what we paid for it. But Kepha came back at her. Then why did the people plot to test the Spirit of the Lord? Listen, the men who buried your husband are at the door. They will carry you out too. Instantly she collapsed at his feet and died. The young men entered, found her dead, carried her out and buried her beside her husband. As a result of this, great fear came over the whole community and indeed over everyone who heard about it. Not playing
That
games.
story.
Right.
Was
Now,
there's some kind of vow made to father. Is that why?
that's why the seriousness of it. They pledged everything into a common purse. Everything you brought. Have you given everything? We have given everything. We have given all of our stuff. We have given everything for God. Everything's for the community. Everything's for His glory. Not really. It was the fact of the seriousness that they stood up and then they made this point, holding back, which was theirs. It was their gift. God gave it to them. They made an undue vow, and they needed to understand that these emissaries are carrying the same weight as the prophets that have gone before them. This is not just fun and games. Abba is holding you accountable to what you promised Him. Okay?
Nobody ever did that again.
Yeah, well, I think everybody now all of a sudden started taking things a little bit more seriously. Okay?
Life may have dropped down a little bit.
Or it might have increased, depending on what you promised. Okay, where was it?
13, Ezekiel.
Yes, back in Ezekiel. Tune in next week. Okay, so you're going to destroy the ark. Then the word of Adonai came to me, human being, it is to your kinsmen, your brothers, your relatives, and the whole house of Israel, that the people living in Jerusalem have said, get away from Adonai. This land has been given to us to possess. Okay, let me just check something here. Yeah, verse 15. Now, do you guys have any other translation there that it says, human being, it is to your kinsmen, your brothers, your relatives? In verse 15.
Son of man.
Okay? More or less the same order. Okay? Now, there's an interesting play in the Hebrew here. The word kinsmen or brothers, okay, could be translated to men of your redemption, because the word, remember the word, the kinsman redeemer is the word? Okay? Right. To gather to El or Goel is also the word used is Geu Latecha. Okay, now whenever you heard a cha at the end, it's normally talking about possession. Okay? So when you are saying Yesh lecha kafe, you're saying, is there to you coffee? Okay? Lacha. Or lach for feminine. Okay? So he's saying, similar root, Goel lecha. He says, it is to your relatives and to your whole house, to your kinsmen, your brothers, to this whole house of Israel, to be redeemed. So there's a double play here, okay, where he says this redemption that is going to happen is sort of alluded to in the time of Jubilee. There is going to come a time, and that's sort of interesting because it kind of parallels Jeremiah. Remember, Jeremiah has to redeem a piece of land at the time of Babylonian captivity. Right? He must go and buy a piece of land, and he knows he's probably never going to see it. He's got to wait 70 years in captivity, or they capture him and he actually gets carted off into Egypt. Well, he goes taken he gets taken out, but he gets to buy a piece of land, right? At the time they end up Babylonian captivity, which is around this time. So it's interesting to me that this time of redemption is a time that God is also alluding to, which he does later in Ezekiel, that he's going to bring the people back into the land. Okay? So it's just an interesting thing. It says, it's your brothers, your relatives, and the whole house of Israel, that the people living in Jerusalem will say, get away from me, Adonai, or get away from Adonai. This land has been given to us to possess. Therefore say to Adonai Elohim, says this, true, I've removed them far away among the nations and scattered them among the countries. Nevertheless, I have been a little sanctuary for them in the countries to which they have gone. A little sanctuary. Do you guys have any other translation there?
Set apart place.
Okay. It's almost talks about a little mishkan in the Hebrew. Okay. Now, it led the rabbis to stop and think, what is this? We're being scattered off into the nations. We're seeing God leaving Israel, leaving Temple Mount and going, only he knows where. I mean, he's in heaven, but yeah, all of a sudden you've seen his Shekinah leave, right? So you get the picture. But remember, when you do the counting, that there were 70 people down into Egypt. When you do the list, there's only 69 names present. Now some people say it's Joseph, but then we're talking about the family of Joseph that was not in Egypt. So we get to ask the question, who's the 70th person?
But it says, I will go with you.
Abba says, I will go with you in. So there's an illusion that it was the 70th person marking them down, going into Mitzrayim with them. I will be with you even in bondage. And even when they go to Assyria, even when they go into Babylon, he went with them. We see him acting in Babylon. So he's almost saying, and this is an interesting little Jewish parallel here, is what is a little sanctuary but a place that houses Torah? Where is it that we house Torah? No, in our synagogues.
In a Torah closet.
In our Torah closet, which is in our synagogue. And our little synagogue is a place of sanctuary where we get to meet with God until he comes back to the Mishkan and his Shekinah returns. For us as believers, a little sanctuary until the time we are gathered and taken back to where he is when he comes back Mount of Olives and into the Mishkan.
Wait, repeat, rewind.
He's saying he was
Right?
I have to come watch this again.
to which they have gone,
He's saying that he had become a little sanctuary to
like with Abraham as well.
Yeah. So it's almost as if, again, he's already preparing Mount of Olives, coming back, a great gathering coming back, but while you are out there, my Torah will be with you. It's Emmanuel. It's the place where the Ruach HaKodesh is. It's all of these things are leading up to the point of where God dwells. That's where we are. Where two or three gather in my name.
I will be with you.
Right. But in the fullness of that coming back home, He's with you out in bondage. He's with you out in the nations. He has provided a place for you to know Him and to be with Him until the time of the great regathering that comes later.
There's also imagery to the Tabernacle of David, which was a mini Mishkan. All that it housed was the Ark of the Covenant.
Right.
So I suppose if you went there, and then as you said further on to the Ruach, you see that image also playing through again, that there was always some sort of setup where the authority and the commands and the manna were all there, going with us everywhere, right? Because Yeshua is the bread of life, the authority.
Which again comes back down to a mini synagogue, right? Yeah. Interesting little thought. Little sanctuary for them that they have gone. Therefore, say that Adonai Elohim says this: I will gather you from the peoples and collect you from all the countries where you have been scattered, and I will give the land of Israel to you. Then they will go there and remove all the loathsome things and disgusting practices, and I will give them unity of heart, and I will put a new spirit among you, and I will remove from them, from their bodies, their hearts of stone, and give them a heart of flesh, so that they will live by my regulations, obey my rulings, and act by them. Sound familiar?
Yep.
Okay. He's already talking about renewed covenant. He says, you sing my Shekhinah leaving. You see me disappearing. And this is a very slow process. I don't know if you've noticed. He was hanging around the Mount of Olives last time we heard. If God wanted to leave in an instant, He could have just done warp speed and that's it. Psh, I'm out. But no. He leaves the courts. He comes to the platform. He dips through the Kidron. He comes up and he sits on the Mount of Olives and he's looking back.
Like Yeshua.
Just like Yeshua. Oh, Yerushalayim, Yerushalayim, if you only knew what would give you peace. I long to gather you like a mother hen gathers her chicks. Right? He's lamenting over Jerusalem. Ezekiel was living in a time when the book of Lamentations was written. Coinciding? I think not. Right. But for those whose hearts go after the heart of their loathsome things and disgusting practices, I will bring the consequences of their ways on their own heads, says Adonai Elohim. The Kruvim lifted their wings, and the wheels were next to them, with the glory of the God of Israel over them above. Next, the glory of Adonai rose from within the city and stood over the mountain, which is on the east side of the city. The Lord lifted me up and brought me in the vision by the Spirit of God to the exiles of the land of the Chasdim, after which the vision I had seen left me. So I told the exiles everything Adonai had shown me. So from the Mount of Olives, we start to see him go up. Right. Oh, we could have done 4 chapters maybe tonight. Chapter 12. The word of Adonai came to me. Human being, you are living among a rebellious people. Sound familiar?
Yep.
Yeah, this is kind of like the buzzword of Israel. They have eyes that can see, but they don't take notice. They have ears that can hear, but they don't pay attention, because they are a rebellious people. Any other translation? Maybe?
But that's also said in Deuteronomy.
You can mark this down. Isaiah 6. It talks about it. It says in Jeremiah 5. And for those, I found this rather interesting. Mark 8, Matthew 13, Acts 28, Romans 11. Isaiah 6, Jeremiah 5, Mark 8, Matthew 13, Acts 28, Romans 11. You guys want the verses as well, or you want to just read all chapter? Jeremiah 5:21, Isaiah 6:10, Mark 8, verse 18. Matthew 13, verse 15. Acts 28, verse 27. Romans 11, verse 8. Same problem, different ages. You have eyes, but you don't see. You have ears, but you don't hear. How many times must he tell you to stop doing what you're doing? How many times do you choose to rebel? How many times are you going to justify what you see with your eyes and ignore it? How many times? You know what I find interesting after that statement and after I looked at the context of some of these? How many times do we see when we talk about Yeshua, do we hear him healing blind men, deaf men, and people who speak? Do you really want to see? Now, if you look at all their physical ailments, and let's just knock on these a few. Son of David, if you have pity on us, you will let us see. Think of what they're asking. What they want is their physical sight. What they get to see is God in flesh. Now, we have this sort of parallel of Daniel. Remember, he says, tell me how long we're going to be here. And then he gets this layout of the entirety of human kingdoms up until the end. And I just wanted a little bit. Yeah, but sometimes you need to understand the bigger picture first. You want your eyes. What good is your eyes if you don't see him? Right? Comes up and he goes, he's a deaf mute. Well, if I open up his ears, will you hear? Will you hear the very voice of God? It makes me think of those who are leprous. Tza'arat. Why are you tza'arat? Because you're unclean. Unclean means you're away from God. If I restore your skin, will you go back to him? Remember, some went and they reported back. And they showed the Kohanim, I've been healed. They've paid the offering. And only, he said something like 10 went and only 2 returned. Can't remember exactly.
Yeah.
Right? Was it, what were they coming back to?
Thank you.
Not just say thank you. Recognize who could heal Sa'arat. Only God. You can come into the presence of God because your Sa'arat is gone. Think of the guy who was lying there for 38 years, the pools of Bethesda, waiting for some pagan thing to heal him. And Yeshua looks at him and goes, you want to be healed? I've been waiting here 38 years. What type of ridiculous question is that? Blah, 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 blah. The lame. Why were they not upright? What does it mean to be upright?
Righteous.
To be a Sadiq. If I restore your spine, will you walk in accordance? Will your halakha follow the restoration of what I'm going to give you? And time again, what is the problem? First, I shut off the voice of God, so I don't have to hear what he thinks about stuff. And I close my eyes so I don't have to see what he wants me to see. What is that telling you about my heart?
Stone.
You want what you want, full stop. You don't want what he wants. So don't call yourself a servant. Don't say you obey when you only choose to obey when it's convenient to you. Don't say you belong to him, but you want to do it whenever you want, how you want to do it, and you want to put your own little marking on this. He is either king and you're a servant. He's either father and you're a son or a daughter. You fall in line with him. And he looks at them and he goes, they have eyes but they don't see. Don't see him. They have ears but they don't want to hear him. You know, I went through a stage in my life where I sat there in my spiritual walk, when every time I asked Abba what he really thought, and I listened to my ear, I listened with one ear going that way and one ear going this way. Because I knew if he spoke to me, he was going to ask me to do something that I probably didn't want to do. How many of you have done that? But if he's going to tell me no, but I really want him to say yes, so, but I know I've got to ask, so Abba, can I do this? Do you really want to know? Okay, fine. I didn't hear anything, so it must be fine. You didn't even ask the question. In your heart, you didn't want to know the answer. Truly in your heart, you didn't seek his counsel. Truly in your heart, all you wanted to hear is what you wanted to hear, not what your king wants you to hear. What's the point of having ears if you don't use that? What's the point of having eyes if you don't see him? It's a funny thing to me that when I look at people, in many cases, I can see their eyes are a condition of their hearts. And their ears are a condition of their feet. Don't tell me you heard me and you don't change. And you didn't hear me. How many times does he have to speak before destruction comes? This is a nation that sits and they struggle with it time and time and time again. We don't just see it in Deuteronomy, we see it in Isaiah, we see it in Jeremiah, we're seeing it in Ezekiel, we're seeing it everywhere. And then we don't get, oh, finally the Mashiach is here, surely he will get them to listen. The Mashiach came, he died, everybody understands that, and we see it in Acts. We see the emissaries walking around powerfully, Shaul and them talking about it, and we still see it in the Roman congregation.
In Revelation.
See it everywhere.
Every church, those of us to hear.
People just don't want to listen. We need to understand that his best for us is our best. We always look at it, and sometimes we see, he wants to give you the world. He literally wants to give it, but he wants to give it to you. Like, let's use a silly example. How many of you wanted a Ferrari for your 18th birthday? Give me a supercar. Any supercar. A really fancy, snazzy BMW 330, twin turbo 335. I don't care. Girls just maybe wanted the convertible or something like that. And then you want something fancy smancy. And your father has it in his power to do that. He's sitting on a fat cash balance of Bill Gates style, stack my $100 bills to the moon and back, and he looks at you and he goes, yeah, you're going to get a fuller. You stingy, mean old man. How dare you? What I really have for you is an SA55 AMG V8 bike turbo supercharged thing sitting in the back. But if you can't drive, that thing's going to kill you. How are you going to learn to drive in that? You're not. So I'm going to teach you slowly how before it controls you. Sometimes we want to jump ahead of the responsibility part and the how I'm going to deal with stuff, and we just want the good stuff. But that, without knowledge, is your death. Freedom. You want financial freedom. You want physical freedom. You want whatever. I don't know. What do people chase after these days, man? It's all about you anyway. So you just want what you want, how you want. And Abba goes, if I let you go, man, I'm not going to see. I'm going to meet you again. But it's going to be a lot sooner than I planned for you. And you're going to look at me and you're going to go, what happened? And I said, I told you, I tried to keep that away from you, but you didn't want to listen. There are times in our life that we have to trust. Open up your ears, check your heart, look at your halakha. If the fruit is going off, it's because you're growing something.
Perfect example, you see it in Romans 1, where you find righteous men who Father, but because they had wickedness inside their heart, the Father actually gives them over to what they want. And you see how whole righteous people just go down south is because they didn't want to deal with the thing that was inside their heart. So the Father said, well, I'm going to give you what's in your heart, and if this is what you want, I'm going to give it to you. You see how it just goes south. completely south. And it's not like these were not righteous men, they were. It actually says that they were righteous men. But because they didn't want to deal with their heart, the Father gave them over to what they wanted.
Well, that's exactly the point, right? Something, the worst thing that he can give you is what you ask for.
Yeah.
Remember, your Messiah gave you a summary or a baseline of a perfect prayer. Not my will, but why does he say that? Yeshua would have made the perfect choice.
Because everything's for God's will.
So he's trying to teach his disciples. He's trying to show you. Don't block up your ears or get your heart or your mind set on something that you know your Father has not put out for you yet. Deal with what's in front of you. Then, when you put something else in front of you, you will realize then how you weren't ready for that thing. Then. But pay attention. He gave you 2 ears and 1 mouth. He gave you 2 eyes. He gave you 2 hands, 2 arms, 2 legs. One of these things. Do more. Walk more. Listen more. See more. Shut. We get into the place where we grumble about what we see, what we hear, what we can't have, and where we can't go. But at the moment, he's keeping you alive, and all you can do is tell him how horrible his job is and how bad he's doing. Use it, don't use it.
I'm sorry, these Israelites sound like teenagers.
I wish I could point at specific people groups, but like I said, I've done this myself. Thank you, Abba.
Only it was just them.
Okay, so where am I? Page 47 somewhere. Don't take notice. Yeah, I think verse 3.
Yeah.
So you, human being, prepare supplies for exile during the daytime as they watch. So he's now going to act out this play because Ezekiel gets to do this miming thing quite a bit. Go away as if you were going into exile. Leave your place and go somewhere else as they watch. Can you imagine? This guy's probably got an audience of people. What is he doing now? He sat there for 430 days, starving himself, being bound up, doing all types of weird things before. We're paying attention now because when he talks to people, people have a tendency to drop dead. So this is a real prophet we're dealing with. And now all of a sudden, exile is coming. Perhaps they will take notice even though they are a rebellious house. Perhaps even now, after the big sign that happened, they will take notice. Bring out your belongings during the day while they watch as supplies for exile, and you yourself, while they watch, are to leave as a people do who are going into exile. Cross-reference that. Parallel that with Pesach. What was the instructions for Passover? Staff in hand, girded, sandals on your feet, get ready to leave. Your freedom is around the corner. What's he saying here? Pack your bags, get ready, you're going to exile. 1, he gave you freedom. What did you do with that freedom? You chose self. Problem. Dig a hole through the wall while they watch and carry your belongings out through it. While they watch, you are to shoulder your pack and carry it out in the dark with your face covered so that you can't see the ground. For I am making you a sign for the house of Israel. This is going to parallel something that's going to happen soon. So I did as I had been ordered. I brought out my belongings during the day as the supplies for exile, and in the evening I dug a hole through the wall with my hand, and I carried my pack out on my shoulder in the dark as they watched. Now remember what I said about digging through the walls. Works in Babylon, doesn't work in Israel. Right? But he gives him something to show that they're going to make a little hole or make a little exit to get out. In the morning the word of Adonai came to me, human being, the house of Israel, that rebellious house, has asked you what you are doing. Tell them that Adonai Elohim says this prophecy concerns the prince in Jerusalem. Okay? The prince. All and all the house of Israel there, say, I am a sign for you, as I have done, so will it be done to them. They will go into exile, into captivity. The prince who is with them will shoulder his pack and leave in the dark. Who does that remind you of? Oh, please pause. Create effect. They will dig holes through the wall and carry out their supplies. They will cover his face so that he won't be able to see.
Fair enough.
Wasn't it when Yeshua was born and they said?
Not Yeshua.
Oh, Samson.
No.
No.
Zedekiah.
Einstein.
Zedekiah snuck out and he tried to make a beeline when they were surrounded. They caught him, murdered his sons in front of his, and then put out his eyes. And took him into captivity. You were put into place. This is the prince that he's talking about. 586 has not happened yet.
Okay, this is before.
Okay, you with me? I will spread my net over him and he will be caught in a snare. He ran, but he was caught and hemmed in. Then I will bring him to Babel in the land of the Chasdim, but he will not see it. I wonder why. He don't have eyes. Even though he is going to die there, I will scatter to every wind all who are in attendance on him to help him, along with all his troops, and I will pursue them with the sword, which they had to do. They will know that I am Adonai when I scatter them among the nations and disperse them among the countries, but I will spare a few of them from the sword, famine, plague, so that they can tell about their disgusting practices among the nations where they go. Thus they too will know that I am Adonai. Your testimony of how dark it was when you came out of whatever hole you came out of, but you survived. Young ones, you don't have to make the same mistakes the old ones do, right? We have a whole bunch of things that we did wrong, and we have the scars to prove it. Don't think for a second that you have to go through that to have a testimony. Abba allowed us to go through that so that we would tell you about His grace, and God willing, we will protect you from our mistakes. You don't have to go through that nonsense. You don't have to. But sadly, many people choose to. But, as we are now, the disgusting practices of our nations, of what we did in Mitzrayim, of our brokenness, and all the rest of it, we now can stand here and go, this is where God saved us. And like I said to you, many, many times, you could probably count on your hand with many of us, so you can say, I shouldn't have life, but by the grace of God. There were probably at least 5 instances in my life I can look back to and realize that I should not be here. How many times does He have to save you before you open up your eyes? Remember, I have been around long enough to bury people that were a lot younger than me. I am one of the few lucky ones. By the grace of God, He kept me alive for a purpose. Other people never had that opportunity. Don't mess around with your life. You don't have to go through that stuff. The word of Adonai came to me, human being, shake as you eat your food, tremble anxiously as you drink your water, and say to the people of the land, here is what Adonai Elohim says concerning those living in Jerusalem in the land of Israel. They will eat their bread in anxiety and drink their water in horror, because the land will be desolated from everything that fills it. Due to the violence of those living there, the inhabited cities will be laid waste. The land will be desolate, and you will know that I am Adonai. Time again and again, and what they're doing and why they're going through this. Before I go anywhere forward, quickly go to Deuteronomy 31, verse 17. I'm going to read from 14 just to give you context. Adonai said to Moshe, the time is coming for you to die. Summon Yehoshua and present yourself in a tent of meeting so that I can commission him. Moshe and Yehoshua went and presented themselves in the tent of meeting. Adonai appeared in a tent in a column of cloud. The column of cloud stood above the entrance of the tent. Interesting. Adonai said to Moshe, you are about to sleep with your ancestors, but this people will get up and offer themselves to prostitutes to the foreign gods of the land where they are going. When they are with those gods, they will abandon me and break my covenant which I have made with them. Then my anger will flare up, and I will abandon them and hide my face from them. They will be devoured, and many calamities and troubles will come upon them. Then they will ask, haven't these calamities come upon us because our God isn't here with us? But I will be hiding my face from them because of the evil they will have done in turning to other gods. Moses. How many years ago, if they stuck to Torah, they would have understood how quickly, when they get their way, they are just looking for an excuse and an opportunity. When they get their way, just remember, I'm going to leave. We see it playing out. Ezekiel understands this. All right. Thank you. The word of Adonai came to me, human being, don't you have this proverb in the land of Israel? Time keeps passing, and none of the visions are fulfilled. Therefore, tell them that Adonai Elohim says, I will put an end to that proverb. Never again will they use it as a proverb. Tell them the time has come for the fulfillment of every vision. Someone's excited.
Why do I feel like you skipped the whole part about women and daughters, or that was I just not here?
Maybe you just went.
Okay.
All right.
Yeah, you should.
Ezekiel.
Yeah, that's a good book. Right? He says, they make a proverb saying, yeah, it's going to carry on, and time is just going to carry on, time is going to carry on. And he says, no, I'm bringing to it now. I'm bringing to the fullness of every vision now. This captivity is going to happen now. Guys, there's going to come a time where God is going to bring into fruition everything he has ever promised. Mm-hmm. Don't say that you believe we're in end times and don't believe that he's coming, because that's when he... Mm-hmm. Did we miss a piece?
Chapter 8.
Ah, Shoni's in the wrong book.
Sorry.
Right.
Don't worry, I was 10 books wrong, Nana. Sorry.
Don't think that you're sitting over here saying, there could be a time when he promised you and your family that he's going to do something, and you're sitting and you're waiting and you're waiting and you're waiting and nothing's happening. Nothing's happening. Surely I'll buy it's just another week, it's just another weekend, and he says, get up and go now. I've given you the last 4 or 5 years to prepare. But, you never took me seriously. If he came tomorrow, would you be ready to leave? He says, that's it, I'm done. Time is at its end. I told you I was coming. Let's have that discussion. But Abba, I wasn't fully there yet. How much more time did you want? Every day is a gift. Every day is to prepare you for the plans that are coming to fruition. That verse scares the snot out of the guys that are there, but it excites me no end. Mm-hmm. Why? Because the plans that he has for us is his glory and our blessing to be part of it. If we forgot him, it's plans for your destruction. Choose carefully who you will serve. Choice. You choose life or death. That's the only options you have.
We say seriousness, and they're saying that Ezekiel is the book of the Psalm, and we would take heed to those words that we say there.
There will no longer be empty visions or falsely optimistic divinations in the house of Israel, because I am Adonai. I will speak. And whatever statement I make, it will be accomplished. There's no if, maybe, or but there. Mm-hmm. Think about that. He is going to come. He's going to do what he needs to do. He's going to restore everything. He is going to do it. He's not going to wait for any man's approval. Listen, as a fellowship, if he wants to get us to Zambia, he's going to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And when he says move, we need to be ready. If he says sit down and keep quiet, your time is not now, he is going to establish what he has declared. I don't know what promise he's giving you, but one thing you know for sure, he will accomplish it for his name's sake. His name is on the line. It will no longer be delayed, for in your days, you rebellious house, I will speak the word and accomplish it, says Adonai Elohim. Again, that creator thing, eh? Again, the word of Adonai came to me, human being, look. People from the house of Israel are saying the vision he sees concerning the distant future. He is prophesying about a time far off. Therefore say to them that Adonai Elohim says, none of my words will be delayed anymore. But the word that I speak, but the word that I speak will be accomplished, says Adonai Elohim. What he has spoken, he will do. Don't kid yourself into thinking that you understand his timeline. We don't. The more you study it, the more you realize you don't understand his timeline. That's the point. It's his timeline. It's not for me to say, okay, Abba, you can come now. I'm sick of working. I'm sick and tired of this family thing. Or, Abba, can you please just hang off a little bit? I think Mauritius sounds nice. You don't get to tell him when he can come and when he can't. When he comes, are you ready? And if he has work for you and he says go, are you ready? Everything that happens in between is grace. It is a time of preparation. Look around, see what's happening, hear what he's saying, and start getting your house in order. If you get yourselves in line, you won't be surprised when he says move. Captivity, for those who listened, was a safe haven. Remember, we said in Jeremiah, if you go, you will have life. And that resonated something ugly with me when you speak about Yeshua and he talks about discipleship and he says, if you lose your life, you'll save it. If you let go of your entire world, you let go of this Jerusalem that you're thinking is your home, with all this brokenness and ugliness and paganness that's going out there, if you go, you will live. And then there will be a chance that many of your descendants will be able to come back and they will start something big. You will have life. If not, your line gets cut off there and there. That's it. Are you laying down your life, or are you still holding it up and saying, not yet? No, Abba, sit back down. You're not ready now. I've still got to go to university. I still need to retire. I don't have grandchildren. My kids are still in school. Sit back down. You're not ready for this. Whatever your excuse is. Let me tell you something, family. You best be ready when he comes. There is no time when he pitches up and you're not ready. It's too late. Yeah.
I just want to say, even in 2 Peter 3, there's a warning that even in our day, there's going to be scoffers. And from verse 3, it says, most important, I want to remind you that in the last days, scoffers will come, mocking the truth and following their desires. They will say, what happened to the promise that Yeshua is coming again? From all the times of our ancestors, everything has remained the same since the world was created. So even at end times, the same old things going on. They're going, yeah, but it's too long, not in our generation, maybe 5 generations from now, etc. So
isn't it just
there's even a warning for us here.
And the enemy's crafty. How many times when people get into the thing, just in our generation, how many times have people said he's coming and they give a day?
Mm.
So now even when you hear people saying he's coming, you immediately switch off. Like, yeah, talk to me next week when he doesn't come. and you plan your week accordingly.
And you laugh at the people who said that.
One day somebody's going to be right. One day someone's going to, you need to be ready. The signs are here. The time is here. He might not give a specific date. If he does, but if he sits there and goes, I'm going to stay away from that generally. When it says no one knows the hour of the day, I believe that that's the case. But Abba will know. He's giving you signs and seasons and times. He's giving you those things so that you can get ready. And I'm telling you now, the more you look at eschatology, the study of the end, things are lining up thick, fast, and furiously. You don't have time to play games. This isn't about your next 20 or 30 years, or if you're lucky, you might not have 5. So what is the essence of your total being? This is hypothetical. I'm not saying it's coming in 5 years. It could come in 1. It could come in 40. If you had 5 years left, and you had 5 years to live for God because you knew He was coming, what mark would you leave? How many of you would be caring about your retirement plan? How many of you would be caring about your education? Education is important, but is it your degree that's going to get you into heaven? How many of you would be so focused on your friendship circles? How many of you would be focusing on your bond payments? You cannot take it with you. Don't be like Lot's wife. Don't turn back and go, oh, my house, my life. This is the brokenness. This is all going to be burnt up. This is all going to be taken away. This is all going to be destroyed. We have time and opportunity now to get ready. If He doesn't come within 5 years, who says He's not going to come 5 years from that point? We need to stay focused, God-centered, God-focused on what He wants, where He wants, and where He wants us to be. Don't get caught up in grabbing the steering wheel thinking that you are going to steer this bad boy into eternity. The only way we get to eternity is if we let go and we climb in His boat. There was no steering wheel on the ark, guys. Noah didn't have much choice where he was going to float. All he knew was, Abba sealed this thing. He said, I'm going to be okay, and we're just going to ride this thing out until this thing stops. It is the seal, it is the covering, and it is what He brought. Okay? Alright. Questions, thoughts?
I just have a question.
Yeah.
In the other chapter, Ezekiel 11, where it spoke about a sanctuary, could that also, is that kind of linking to Corinthians 3 verse 17 where it talks about that we are the temple?
Possible. It's a possible thing. I think the idea is that when you look at we as in a tent, plural, right?
Yeah.
So when we gather with one focus and one mind and one heart, He would dwell in, and it is a sanctuary. It's a meeting place.
Okay.
Right.
Thanks.
Which is why the rabbis and that, they look at it and they go, well, it must be a synagogue. We have a little sanctuary to remind us. It's about our community, what's in the center of our community, the only book we care about, God's Word. Him dwelling with us, and our week, our entire life is defined around this day. Until the time comes when we get gathered back to His feet, and then we can just ask Him and say, remember you said that thing? What was that about? Okay? Alright, prayer time is every time. Turn your chair back. Turn that chair. Alright, bow heads. Father, we just thank you. Thank you for your word. Father, we just thank you as well, Lord, that we can just look at your heart and that you go with us, Lord Father, out into captivity, Lord Father, out into places where we're far away from you, from the place that you said your presence will be, Lord Father. And we just look forward to the time where your temple, Father, the right fullness of you dwelling there, Lord Father, as in the end of the age, Father, where we can sit at your feet. That we can truly say that you are dwelling with man, Emmanuel, Father, that we would enter into this relationship for eternity, Lord Father, and that we can just be with you. And we thank you for those blessings. We thank you for those promises. Father, I pray that you would open up our ears, our eyes, Lord Father, our mouth, that we may speak only what you put in our mouth, Lord Father, that you would help us, Father, flow, or allow you to flow through us, Lord Father, so that when we speak, people hear you. Abba, I pray that you would just help us with our heart condition. At times we become so fixated or so focused on the stuff, on our problems, on our issues, Lord Father, we take our eyes off you. And we start to sink as Peter did, Lord Father, when he was trying to walk on that water. Father, we know that you're busy testing and you're busy getting us ready, Father, for the work that you've called us to do. So, Father, I just thank you for that. But I pray that you would help us be open to it. Help us, Lord Father, rejoice in these testing and trials because it's going to make us stronger. Help us deal with the root of our problems, Lord Father, our stiff-neckedness, our stubbornness, our deafness, our blindness, our hard-heartedness, Lord Father. Help us, Father, as we just get rid of that root, and we just pray that you pluck that out right now in Yeshua's name. Heal those hurts, Lord Father. Change us so that we may better focus on you in its fullness, in your fullness, in the fullness of this walk. So we may better reflect you in everything, Lord Father. May we as a fellowship, Lord Father, as a people that belong to you, the whole house of Israel, Lord Father, may our hearts be aligned with yours, Lord Father. May we be one mind, one heart, and one body. For your glory, Lord. In Yeshua's name we pray. Amen.
It's cool. Thank you.